of amazing guests. We visit the past. We ponder our future as we exist in the here and now. At This Moment with Angela Black, Thursday evenings, Studio B on Revolution Radio.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome, one and all, to I Am Nature. Brian Porter, your host, is back with you this week. And I usually say hi to my amazing producer first, Angela Black. How's it going, Angela?
Going well, Brian. Just got off air on Studio A.
I know. You just, I don't know how you do it, girl. I don't know how you do it.
Oh, well, thank you. I have a good husband. That's a good start. And I just balance. I really work on balance every day. It's an important part of life, I think. So.
Yeah, so you're doing all this stuff while you're on the balance beam on a high wire.
Yeah, exactly. I know, it's amazing. And then I'm also editing a book and transcribing a couple of screenplays and doing some other business meetings. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Do you have a guest to plug for tomorrow's show?
I do. Thank you for asking. His name is Eric Rees. It's Arik, and he's a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander, and he has created a film called Drug Lord, and it's about the history of cannabis and how New Zealand got caught up in the U.S. war on drugs, and it talks about the first legal nature of cannabis in general, how it was then criminalized, and deemed illegal, and how the fight for that to be reversed continues, etc. So it's very interesting, and he's putting together a second film called Drug Lord 2, and I believe he's doing a crowdfunding situation, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll be asking him a little bit more about that tomorrow. So I hope to bring some awareness to his next project and let people know about the first one. I've started to watch the documentary, and it's definitely very informative. So I've got that going for me. And speaking of crowdfunding, go ahead.
Nice for me there, Angela. Thank you. I have James McCanney here today. James, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I mean, Angela was so busy, we didn't have time to do a sound check or anything, so you're coming in loud and clear.
And if
Beautiful.
I may, we have a chat box open in this conversation, and we type in it, James, so if you can click the little message icon so that you can see the chat box while we're doing the show, that would be fantastic. And
okay.
Just a quick shout out to Willpower in the chat room. He is the person who posted the link for for one of your inventions last week. And Brian hopped on that bandwagon, and I'll let Brian take it from there. But just a quick shout out to Willpower. I let him know that you're here today, and he is very, very happy to hear that. So there you go.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed. James McCanney is just. He sent me, I'm so privileged, he sent me all his books, and I got through 2 of them since last week, and I'm just amazed. This man has an intellect, and there's just, it's beyond, I don't know how did you manage to do so much in your short life? I mean, I'd need like 10 lives to do what you've done in terms of the things you studied, I mean, you've taught almost every subject of mathematics, astronomy. I mean, it's just incredible, James, what you've accomplished in your life.
I tell people what you see is about maybe less than 10% of what I have on my desk and working on right now. And that's actually reality. I'm right now, in a sense, personally, just kind of driven, and my brain is just racing. And I'm covering, everything from the calculate primes problem, solving the advancing in the study of prime numbers in the math side. I'm doing I've worked in encryption, very high level encryption with high level computing, telecommunications, firewalls. And that's just on that side. The other part is the space science part of my life. And then teaching, I've taught at the university level for about 10 years of my life. And that covered, like you were saying, astronomy, computer science, physics, and mathematics, probably all the courses there are in mathematics at the undergraduate level. But my own research covers a tremendously wide spectrum of just many, many topics. But the thing I'm working on right now is the wing generator project. It's the term I use for a redesign of what some people call wind generation, but I don't want to use that term because I don't want to confuse it with all of the previous efforts to trap wind energy. I call my project the wing generator, and that's what I'm concentrating on in the public eye right now.
Right. No, it's quite novel in its construction, although it looks a lot like a Ferris wheel, eh?
Well, yes, and that's the idea. There's a lot of physics and engineering involved in extracting energy from the wind or from any source at all. And so what you want is efficiency, and you have to understand the source. Wind does not blow strong all the time, and it blows from different directions. Sometimes it's gusty. And so your design has to accommodate all of this. And especially in today, where we're trying to extract energy for use for the public, you have to extract it at lower wind speeds. And so mine does all of those things. There's an old expression, Brian, that I learned camping with some friends. A friend of mine always was catching fish, and none of us could figure out why this guy caught all the fish. Well, then we finally figured out he had the line in the water all the time. And so there's an expression, you're not going to catch fish unless your line's in the water. And the same is true of wind energy. Unless you're out there connecting to the wind at almost all points, you're not going to trap the energy out of the wind. And that's one of the kind of a philosophical aspect of my design. But also in what we normally view as wind generation, everybody is familiar with the 3-blade wind generator. It's on everybody's T-shirt. You see them stacked up all over the countryside. It's a horrible design. It's a terribly, terribly inefficient design. In most cases, it doesn't extract any energy from the wind at all. And we can get into that a little bit later. But what mine does is, first of all, if you try and make something big spin fast, you can't do it. So if your device depends on spinning fast to extract energy from the wind, it's going to fail the bigger you get. So that's one of the principles of my design, is it doesn't spin fast. There's a myth. We think of propellers as spinning fast, and therefore the airplane goes fast, or a boat. But when you're extracting energy from the wind, that's not true. And so people have kind of reversed this propeller going fast idea to get energy out of the wind, and it's totally, totally erroneous. So what I had to do was break a lot of myths in designing my wing generator and extracting energy from the wind. So it's a new design, completely new concept. But the main point of what I want to do is completely replace the carbon, which, in other words, the coal and the oil that we use for transportation primarily, and then nuclear power. Nuclear power is a disaster, and the political forces are trying to push us into nuclear. The
worst
wind
invention in the history of mankind, in my opinion. Worst invention.
It's people don't even understand. They're burning bomb-grade nuclear fuel in these reactors now. People don't understand that. They're decommissioning nuclear bombs, and they're burning it in outdated, out-of-date nuclear generators that were meant for a very low-grade fuel. It's like putting nitroglycerin race car fuel in a little Ford Escort and trying to drive 100 miles an hour. It doesn't work. It's doomed to failure, and it is failing. These systems are failing. But nuclear is terrible. Ottawa...
I have this proposal to all the people in nuclear engineering who thinks it's so safe that they should go over to Fukushima and fix it first. Prove to the world that it's safe and it's not a problem. Go there and fix it. I haven't seen somebody take my offer up.
No, it's Fukushima is an extremely dangerous place. Yeah, in fact, they can't even get robots to go in there.
It's not safe. It never has been. And then they take the waste and they put it in bombs, and they call it's depleted uranium. It's infected the world for the rest of the predicted lifespan of this planet, 4.5 billion years. Evidently, this stuff is radioactive. So, honest to God, they've really messed up this planet with nuclear energy, nuclear power, and nuclear bombs. It's just I'm so glad to have somebody like you who wants to actually help use your great scientific skills to actually make the place better and not worse. Because, wow, we need people like you, James. A lot more of them.
What I want to do, Brian, is replace. And in fact, we hear the term alternative energy. I'm going to ask you a question, and your listeners, if they would like to respond. When you hear the term alternative energy, do you think something big and powerful, something that's really going to solve the world energy problem? Or do you think of a little Band-Aid that makes you feel good? You see those wind generators, you see some solar panels, and you think green and nice. But do you really think that any of those are going to replace ever in a million years, not even in 100 years, but in a million years, replace the central power plant?
Well, I know that there's two big challenges. One is that it's easier to fix the problems locally, like for houses and whatnot, residential power needs. But when you're looking at dealing with industrial needs, then you're looking at a big challenge. And that's what I like about your design, is that it can meet industrial size, like nuclear plants. I've got a brother-in-law who just retired from IBM. He got quite far up in the company. He was in charge of these huge data centers that just suck energy like crazy. People think they're being green by looking at videos on their computer. No, you're sucking a lot of energy when you do that. Those data centers, they take a whole power plant full of energy. I'm not sure how many kilowatts, but man, he says they put the power plant right beside the data center so they wouldn't lose any energy in transmission. That's how much these things are sucking. So all this great information highway we're creating needs a hell of a lot of energy. And I don't think solar's going to do it. I'm a big fan of geothermal. We can get to that later. I think that's one of my favorites, and I'm sure I think it's as good as it may be as good as yours. I like your opinion, but I'm all over what you're doing. If you can, you said I read this in somewhere in your this book on your wind generator. That you could, for the price of 2 nuclear power plants, you could replace all the power on the planet with these wind generators. They're that cheap to build and they're that efficient. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, a nuclear power plant is extremely expensive, and it's more expensive to decommission. The one in San Diego a year ago went belly up. And so they're now spending $2 billion to decommission that. You don't just turn the key and lock the door and walk away with one of these babies.
Well, I know. I'm actually glad they're spending the money. I thought they were just leaving them.
No, they have to decommission them, but we have about 150 nuclear power plants in the United States. Obama is trying to push us into get rid of coal. He says that's bad. Coal is actually a very clean source of energy now that they have the scrubbers in place. And but the problem is we're also burning oxygen with the coal. And the gasoline engines, it's a topic that nobody wants to talk about. It's a topic that I pioneered, that if you burned all of the oil that's in the Orinoco flow, that's Venezuela, which is the largest deposit of oil on the planet, and the tar oil there, you would burn up all the oxygen we have on the planet. Not a good idea. we've already burned significantly into our oxygen level on this planet. And all the green politicians and everybody walking around talking about global warming, they're not talking about this problem. The idea that the Amazon jungle somehow,
could you say that
or
again,
forests.
James? I lost you on that percent on the oxygen we burn. You said 50%, right? Is gone now because of oil.
I didn't put a percentage, but I said it's a lot. We have burned from the 1900s, when we started burning heavily coal and producing electricity and metals, which require a tremendous amount of heat. Since that time, the Industrial Revolution, we have burned a good percentage of the oxygen on this planet.
Oh, okay.
And there's not enough banana trees in the Amazon to replace that. And the other thing is, you're in Ottawa. During the winter, when you look out your window and you see that landscape, there's not a leaf, there's not a bud, there's not a thing growing that's converting CO2 back into oxygen. Where does the oxygen come from? We're burning cars and all of this. The concept that somehow the forests of the world have a cycle and replenish our oxygen is fairy tale. It's simply not true. We are burning oxygen at a rate much greater than any group of plants can replace. And so the idea is that if the plants were replacing oxygen, then how do you replace the oxygen during 6 to 7 months in winter up in the, Canadian, all across Canada or across the United States, where the industrialized United States, New York City to Detroit to, the whole eastern seaboard is depleting oxygen, burning, and there's no replenishment of that. So where does the oxygen come from? The point is, we are burning native oxygen. And, here's the situation. People will be probably saying, well, you're getting away from the green idea, the idea of preserving the earth. And no, what's happened with global warming and all of the things that people feel green about and good about turning that light bulb off or whatever they're doing, the reality is that's a political football. It was created by the people that want to keep burning fuel, high energy content fuel, coal, nuclear, and oil. And at the G7 conference recently in Europe, they were talking about getting off of carbon-based fuels by the end of the century. Boys and girls, that's 85 years away. I mean, that's not a goal. That's goofy. That's ludicrous that anybody should say that.
That's a new definition of procrastination. I mean, none of them are going to be here. None of the governments will be. I mean, it's a joke. It means nothing. They're basically saying they don't want to say they couldn't agree, so they threw this out. It's just a joke.
Yeah. And so anyway, what I'm telling people is that the political movements that people are caught up in are really a joke. The government in the United States right now will pay you to put solar panels on your house. Now, why are they doing that? That's because solar panels are not a solution. They're a Band-Aid, and they make people feel good. But here's the problem. The voltage, and these are technical problems, the voltage in Canada and the United States and Europe, in the big users of energy, the voltage is controlled by the central power company. They have to maintain the voltage level and the frequency, and then the current varies. But the point is, once you bring up a bunch of independent solar or wind or whatever other type of devices you have out there, and the clouds roll in, and then the sun comes out, and all of a sudden you have a lot of energy, the central power company can't quick run in and put a hose on the coal plant or pull the rods out of the nuclear plant and cool it down all of a sudden. That thing's rolling. You can't just turn the knob and turn it up and down like that. And so the bottom line is that the central power plant cannot control the voltage if there is a lot of solar, if there's a lot of what we call alternative energy. So in realizing this, I said, no, we have to replace. And so I call it replacement energy. I don't call my project alternative energy. I call it replacement energy because the plan is literally to replace the central power plant.
And with your large design, which is is it 1,000 feet high? Is
Correct.
that the largest
Yeah,
one you think
it's
would work?
1,000. Well, it's actually taller than 1,000 feet. The wheel, the wing, construction itself is 1,000 feet in diameter.
Okay.
And it's probably around 300 feet off the ground at the lowest level. So we're talking about 1,200 feet, a quarter of a mile high at the top. And the wind at the top is very, very strong. So there are many design factors. For example, the wind is much stronger at the top than at the bottom, and it might be even coming in a different direction. So the wing is designed to auto-adjust to all of that. As this thing turns, it's going to be adjusting automatically to all of the wind conditions that the individual wing is experiencing as it rotates around this large wheel. And
would this thing be about the same size as the eye in England? The eye, what do they call that? Eye in the sky or whatever?
No, this is going to be about well over twice the diameter of the eye in England. I just, in fact, captured a picture of the eye with the skyline of London. I just captured a picture of that for my demonstration, and the eye is about 443 feet in diameter. I think that's how high it is, actually. And so the ring itself, outer ring, is smaller. But mine would be well over twice.
So it'll be bigger than that, but it's the same kind of idea. Like it's not beyond our engineering capacity to make this thing. It's not going to fall apart. It's not going to blow up. It's not going to, in a strong wind, it wouldn't be compromised in any way.
Correct. And the companies I have dealt with in doing engineering studies, they're the people that have built those. And so when I went to them, with my idea, most of their engineering staff did not know what we were doing. Because we're just trying to keep the lid on this idea. So they didn't know what we were doing. But basically, those are the same companies that I'm dealing with that built the Singapore. I forget what it is. There's the one in Las Vegas now, the Las Vegas wheel, which is bigger. There's one in Singapore, which is big, and then the London Eye. But this dwarfs any of those.
Right. Okay. I think you said one of these could replace a nuclear power plant. One of them or two?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about science here. Being a physics teacher, I'll try and give some instructions. Let's talk about a thing called torque. When you take a wrench out and you try and get your lug nuts off your tire, okay, they're really on there. What do? You go get a pipe, and you put the pipe over the lug wrench, and you pull out farther to get leverage and torque. The idea being the farther out you put your force, the more leverage, the more torque you have in towards the center where you're doing the work. So if you take and put a couple 100-foot blade out there, like a 3-blade wind generator, okay, the tip is very thin, and it really doesn't do much work, and that might be 150 feet long. Okay, compare that to 500 feet. Now, instead of the little skinny tip of a 3-blade wind generator, you have 1.5 million square feet of sail. Okay, the scale here is beyond anything anybody can imagine. I call it sail or wings, and these are working in the direction of rotation. And so this is torque. This means you have the equivalent of 1,500 150-foot sailboats. Now, I don't know if you're a sailor. I've been on big boats, like a 150-foot sailboat, and all the sail up. Take 1,500 of those and put them into one of these, and then put those sails or wings out towards the edge, 500 feet out, and the torque that you get towards the center when these are working is incredible. Now you're talking about replacing a nuclear power plant. If you look at what a nuclear power plant is putting out, about 500 megawatts, that's the average for a nuclear power plant. The 1,000-foot wing generator can probably, on a good day, put out at least twice that.
Wow.
And so this is what I'm saying. Part of my book, by the way, there's a chapter called The Myth of Alternative Energy. And what I do is I go into the entire scenario of alternative energy, and I developed a single litmus test question. If you read about, or you look at, or you're a design engineer, or you're investment, you're putting investment into alternative energy, the one question that you should ask is, if you are really interested in solving the problem, will this device, whatever it is, whatever you invented, will it completely replace all coal, nuclear, and oil, which are the basis of our energy systems worldwide? The other things like natural gas, etc., we use some, but those are the three big ones. We use around 20 terawatts of energy per year. We know these numbers. Can your device, in an economical means, replace that? Let me make a quick calculation statement on the air here, something I like to use. We're all familiar with the 3-blade wing generator. They are rated at 1.5 megawatts. Now, that's a certain rating of power, 1.5 megawatts. But they only run at about 10 to 20% efficiency. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're running overall 365 days a year at 20% efficiency. It would take over 77 million of them to come close to meeting our international energy needs. 77 million.
What would that cost? What would that cost to build them? I mean, honest to God. I mean, the maintenance cost.
Well,
I mean, probably more than that would
even
cost even more than nuclear. I mean, it's insane. We can't even afford it.
No, and so this is does it pass the litmus test? Can it replace our international energy needs? No. And so when people all around the lakes on the Canadian side, you are heavily laden with 3-blade wind generators. I just saw a video, very well done, about the Canadian wind energy situation. And it showed that on most days, those 3-blade wind generators don't produce a drop of energy. Nothing. Zero. And on good days, when they have an average wind, they can't run when the wind is too strong. They can't run when they're terribly inefficient. At even mid wind speeds, they're only 10 to 15% efficient. So really, those are all put out there, and they're all getting a subsidy. Most of those towers get $500,000 per year from the Canadian government subsidy, in spite of the fact they're not producing a drop of energy.
Okay, James, we're coming up on our first break, so hang in there, and thanks everyone for listening to our fascinating discussion of the wing generator. We'll be back soon with more I Am Nature.
Okay.
Welcome back to I Am Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and I have a most well-educated inventor here, James M. McCanney, and we're talking about what I believe to be one of the main solutions to the energy crisis and the pollution that we're creating through the production of our energy right now on the planet. He's an incredibly smart guy. And James, I think we should just start this next segment with a little plug for the actual proposal, the crowdfunding proposal online. Can you tell people how to get to this site?
First of all, Brian, many people that are listening already are connected to your page or your information. Do you have a link there?
We can stick it in the chat room. Yeah.
The Indiegogo link? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure, no problem.
I threw it in the box there. Oh, yeah, Jim, you got to remember to go to the chat box, when we're on break.
Oh, okay,
yeah, you're not seeing us in there. We've been talking to you.
Because we're trying to chat with you about things.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
No problem.
But
next break.
The other place you can put the note is that my webpage, and people may want to visit my webpage also, which is jmccsci.com. 7 letters, JMCC, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, I as in Indigo.com. And that's my That's the short URL for my webpage. My webpage is
One more time.
McCanney
One more time.
Science.
One more time, James.
Yes, 7 letters, J, M as in Mary, C, C, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, I as in indigo.com.
Got it.
.com. Yes, there you go. You got it. And so at the very top is the link to the Wing Generator crowdfunding. And apparently people in your audience are familiar with crowdfunding. It's where people put in, if they support something, they put in, 5 or 10 or 100 or $1 million if they want. But it's a way to get funding from the public, and it basically averts something that I've been through many times in my life, and that is investor capital. And so when you're doing that, good ideas get buried because those same investors have their money in General Electric, in Siemens, in military contractors. They have it in companies that are already in the energy industry, and they're not going to cut their other investments, which are guaranteed to make money every year, and then fund your project, which is going to wipe out all energy profits. Energy is an amazingly profitable industry. And so imagine you're walking in, it's like calling up the police when the police are beating you up. There's not much point. And so when you go to an investment capital firm, you go to an investment capital firm and you present this wonderful idea to solve the energy problem, they are going to fund the ones that are not going to work. And they're going to put them up there. And you know why? Because the government is going to subsidize all of those. And they are going to get their money back through subsidies, and they all know it. And so like the 3-blade wind generator in Canada, they're getting $500,000 a pop for those towers out there every year, and they don't do a thing. So it's a very profitable business, and they get their money up front. The towers are typically paid for in a year or two with capital that is raised by the governments, and the people are paying for these. And finally, in Canada, they're waking up and saying, hey, these things don't work. They're outlawed in the Netherlands. England has court battles going on between them and the companies that have installed the 3-blade wind generators. Northern Ireland is going through convulsions trying to stop them. Yet they're putting them, they continue to install these 2, 3, 500 at a time. And they talk about their installed base, meaning the maximum amount, if the wind were blowing and all of them were working perfectly on a very windy day, and if the wind gusted over 35 miles an hour, they would actually have to shut them off because they can't handle the high wind. So literally, if all of them were working perfectly on a windy day, that's what they quote as their installed base. I know this. I know the people that run those operations. The Canadian Wind Energy Association, CanWIA, is board of directors is General Electric, Siemens, Pattern, Vista, all of these companies that either make or resell or install and maintain those 3-blade wind generators. This is big business. This is a business that there's a lot of money, but they don't produce energy. So this is the thing that people are up against. They have to understand it. That's why in my chapter in my book, I call it the myth of alternative energy. And so that's why it's important to understand that. But going back to my project,
I like your analogy, Jim. When you say you're driving a hybrid or an all-electric car, well, if that energy isn't being produced by a clean source, it ain't an alternative.
Oh no,
it's coal.
No,
it's nuclear. It's bad energy. I mean, the bottom line is that unless we deal with the large generating capacities, then we're not really changing anything.
No, and furthermore, the number of electric or hybrid cars out there is very small. If everybody went out and bought an electric or hybrid car today, do you know something? The electric power company could not produce enough or deliver enough power on the grid system we have today. They couldn't deliver enough power to supply the energy for those cars. We use a lot of energy. A big portion of our energy budget is in gasoline, which comes directly from cracking oil, the refinement of oil. And so what I've done, being a scientist, let me say something first, Brian. I started all of this because I was asked by the energy industry in a certain area to do an end-to-end analysis of their energy loss and gain and the efficiencies and everything over all of their design. And at the very end, they said also, this was back before alternative energy really took off. They said, also give us an analysis of this alternative energy thing coming up down the line here. Tell us about that. What I realized back then is none of the solutions, solar, wind, three-blade wind generators, none of those were solutions. None of them would ever be solutions. And then if you threw in electric automobiles and tried to replace the amount of energy we burn up in gasoline every year, the future was not in electricity, although it should be. And also, just a side note here, we're looking into a entirely new technology that's becoming very efficient recently. Europe is actually using this already in other parts of the world, compressed air. Now we have tanks where you can put a tremendous amount of energy in a compression tank and get about 95% of that back. It's a new technique that's patented. Company out in Silicon Valley has the patents. And they spray warm water into the air as it's being compressed. And the end result is you're compressing very humid air instead of just air. And the result is you can get about 95% of the energy back out from that. You can run your car on it. You can run your refrigerator in your house. Many of our appliances can run off of compressed air. Motor scooters. This is huge because the wing generator can directly compress that air. We don't even have to convert to electricity and store it. There's pumping water or filtering water, running reverse osmosis, removing salt from seawater requires a lot of electricity and pumping. And you do that directly from the wind, which is available at the seashore. And all of a sudden, you have free, clean water from the ocean. There's a lot of uses for this, but the whole concept here is that, going back to this idea, the litmus test for any alternative energy: can you replace the power company? And so, let me just mention the wing generator project that I have on it's called Indiegogo, the crowdfunding page that I've chosen to do the crowdfunding. The 12-meter model is the one I'm going after here. I want to have a marketable, commercially available 12-meter diameter model. Now, what's that going to do? That's for a ranch. That's for a farm. Out in like Ottawa and out in the countryside, you have these big ranches. Down in the American Southwest, down in Brazil, Argentina, you have big, big ranches. But their electric is very poor. South Africa, I've gotten lots of requests from South Africa, from other countries that have very poor, unstable electricity. But they're delivering it out on very long routes, out into the farms, out into these rural areas. That's what this was designed for $30,000, which is nothing. It's nothing compared to solar, compared to any of the other alternative energies. $30,000, you can completely make a farm or a ranch autonomous electrically. You can cut the power cord to the central power station. That's what I'm going after. And I estimate right now I have a market of about 100,000 units stacked up worldwide of this size, 12 meter. That's what the crowdfunding effort is for. I'm looking for $50,000. It just started a couple weeks ago, and I'm already about 15% there. So I believe we're going to make it. But the other thing about crowdfunding is that people put in $5 or $10. A lot of people put in $100. A lot of people have put in $500. But it's the backbone is the $5, $10, $20 person, because it does two things. If you took 5,000 people that put in $10 each, that's $50,000. That's what's going to take to get this project commercialized. Or the other way of looking at it is those are small numbers. And so the 5,000 people giving $10. So that's why the $10 or the $5 person is important. The other thing it does is as the numbers grow on the crowdfunding page, other people go there and they go, this thing is succeeding. Other people are doing this. They only have $5 or $10 to give, but they're doing it. I'm going to do it too. So it's like a vote. It's a vote yes for this project. So that's why the guy that gives a few dollars is important. And it's like the price of a cup of coffee.
And I would suggest to people too, if they do give 5, 10, 50, whatever they choose to give, that they let people know that they've done that. So whatever social media sites, I think almost everyone now is on some site, whether it's Facebook or oh God, there's so many of them. My
Twitter,
favorite's Facebook. Twitter, whatever. If they do that, put up a post about it. Let all your friends know about it, and explain why.
And that's a big help too. And if somebody just say, I just don't even have $5, send out an email with your friends or tweet or Twitter or whatever, or Facebook, and so everybody can help in some manner. And then follow it. It's not just put a little money and go away. Follow the program. Watch what it's doing. And I guarantee you, when people see these 12-meter models out on a ranch, and that farmer is not only running his entire ranch, but he's driving around an electric scooter or a car on his ranch, completely electric, they're going to look and they're going to go, wow, this thing works. And then now we're going to scale up. We're going to go to the bigger entities. We're going to go up to the 100-foot model. And then we're going to start taking small communities out in third world countries. We're going to start taking them off the power company. And sooner or later, we're going to start to build the big ones, the 1,000-foot ones that are going to take Oakland and San Francisco off the nuclear power plants out there. We're going to take LA and New York City, Paris. This is going to happen. And people then will be able to buy their electric car, and they're going to be able to pay for it because they're not paying an electric bill. This is the way of the future. These are designed to last 100 years. There's no moving parts in the wing generator. Compare that to the old 3-blade wind generators, which break down all the time. They have gears. They have all kinds of complex mechanics in there. All of the equipment is up on high 300 feet off the ground. All of the equipment in my design is on the ground. So where you can service it, etc. We can put these on floats, put them out in the ocean offshore where the wind is constant. And then when you want to repair them, you just bring the float in. You're not building some kind of big base down into the ocean. So you can put these offshore 20 miles if you want and run the high voltage in on cables. There's a lot of advantages here. Like I say, I know this industry backwards and forwards, upside down and backwards, and I know all the details. And so when I did my design, I talk about this, I designed what's called, I started out with a functional specification. I've been in engineering half of my life, and I used to write these in engineering and telecommunications. It tells you what the product should do and what it should be and what it should not be. It doesn't tell you anything about the design at all. It has to meet these parameters. It has to be this repair cycle. It has to do this. It has to produce this much energy. It has to cost this much to make. All these are all the design parameters. Now you start and you start designing the system. And if you get outside of any of those design parameters, okay, whoops, we've gone astray. We have to bring that back and bring the design back into focus to meet the functional specification. And that's something engineering companies don't do anymore. They throw something together, they want to sell it, they get a government subsidy, and hey, life is good. So at any rate, this system is designed and very well designed. The 12-meter model is what I'm looking for the funding here. It's only $50,000. I already have sales. I already have sales at $30,000 a piece, and pending. And so there are people sitting in the wings. If I had them sitting there today available, they would be installing them. And so that's what the wing generator effort is all about.
Now, what sort of I noticed on the document that you sent me that you actually have a little explanation as to how to put these things together yourself, how to make one that would maybe go on the roof of your house or whatnot. I think it's a smaller design, but would you say this is like something that is user friendly in terms of construction? What level of skill do you have to make something like this yourself?
Well, yeah, in the wing generator book, in fact, if you give, I think it's $100 donation to the fund, then you get the book for free, or you can buy the book for $50 on my webpage and just get the book. But in there, I describe and I show one just small mock-up model that I built as an example, as a small example. It's a 10-foot diameter that will run two like car alternators. And this is something that somebody could do at their house. There are a lot of people right now who want to develop something to sell or whatever. And so I have a developer license that people can buy depending on their company size or whatever. But individuals are buying these too. And it's $500 per license to do this. This is for building one or two at your home. But I do not have like build part A, glue to part B, that type of thing. I don't have, or go out and buy this size bolt or whatever. I don't have that, and there's a reason for it. And that's because the general public is not adept at building these complicated systems. They are very simple, but on the other hand, when you start connecting something to electric, they become dangerous. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing with a car alternator, you can be killed by not handling it properly. So when you're dealing with the general public, you can't just send something out there and say, everybody build one of these. So that it requires somebody that has knowledge of electronics, of alternative energy type systems, and inverters, batteries. Let's just take an example. This is a real example. I had a guy that was a friend, and he was putting solar panels on his garage, and he had some 12-volt batteries out there, and he was going to connect his house to an inverter. The inverter was in the house, but he was going to connect them with a pair of, those cables that you start your car with in the winter up there, jumper cables.
Jumpers,
and he thought, well, that should be enough. The 30-foot run from the batteries to his house would have required 1.5 inch copper cables, the kind that don't even bend, that have hundreds of individual copper wires. So, people don't have a concept of this kind of thing, engineering and what it takes to put a system together, and he would have burned his house down probably. That was not doing my system. That was just doing some solar panels and some batteries in his garage. But this is the problem. Unless people really know what they're doing, like they say, don't try this at home. That's why I want the commercial model, because when you go and install it, okay, you're going to have an installer there. You're going to look at the situation, make sure that all the cable runs are correct. Every house, every farm, every ranch is different. Maybe the guy's got a barn 200 yards away where the horses are. He wants electric over there. Okay, where are you going to put things? How are you going to wire this up? What kind of cable does he need? What kind of backup power source does he need? Batteries? How many batteries? This is all. There's so many variables. You can't just throw a design out there that fits all. And so I do have a general design, but it's people really have to be adept at knowing what to do. It's not something you just like I say, part A glues to part B and it's done. It's quite a bit more complicated and that's dangerous, because if you build something when, for example, there's a high wind and the thing blows apart, then you have things blowing around. It's like, and of course, if there's a tornado, nothing's going to withstand that. But within reason, you want this thing to hold together. And there again, how do people put something together? And there's just too many variables.
Yeah. No, it sounds to me like you could probably make it the basic model or follow your schematics, but when it comes to connecting it to your electrical system in your house or whatever you're going to use it for, call an electrician or someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. And and that's just the case with almost anything like that. I know what I'm doing, and I call an electrician for certain things, just because it's just everybody has a certain, like, I don't put roofing on my house because I'm not adept at crawling around on a roof, and I know what my limitations are. And so and it's like everybody else, not many people are adept at all of these different things to hook up a system. But if you have a system that's commercially designed and you have a technician that goes out there that knows what he's doing, okay, then not a problem. That's the goal, is to get a commercial model that we can go out to a ranch or a farm. This past summer, I was out in the American Southwest. I was driving out through Kansas and down through Wyoming and some of the areas where we have big ranches. And that's what the target market is.
Right. Okay. Coming up to the next break, James will be back soon. Great. Hello. Welcome back to I Am Nature. Your host, Brian Porter, here with an amazing guest this week, James
McCanney.
I
saw that you disappeared for a short second. I'm glad you're back, Brian. Looks like you had a connection problem.
I was trying to get a better connection. James is, I guess he's not at your end, but on my end, he's fading in and out.
Oh, no, the
it's
connection
just this
sounds
lousy
fine
Wi-Fi I've got in this hotel room I'm in right now.
We're okay.
Yeah, so I'm glad I'm back too. But hey, folks, this is usually the time of my program when I talk about the importance of contributing to our station, to freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, the largest listener-supported internet radio platform on the planet. We need your donations. Again, $5 or $10 really goes a long way here at the station. And we've got all sorts of ways you can actually benefit from donating, whether it comes to buying seed packs, whether it comes to, my favorite thing is, I think the most valuable thing are the archives of the shows, because you can't possibly listen to all the great shows here because we've got 2 platforms going 24 hours a day. So you need the archive to catch up on shows that may be running at the same time, or maybe you just had to go out and you had something better to do and you couldn't listen. But I mean, the archive's only $5 a month to subscribe to. So please do what you can to support this amazing platform. Okay, now let's get back to our guests. James, tell the listener, you've got your own radio spot, right? And it's quite impressive, actually. You were telling me about it.
Yes, Brian. My radio show is actually, I've got probably close to 15 years in on it. It's out of Nashville, Tennessee. WWCR is the largest radio station in the world. Broadcasts on 400,000 watt towers up on the hills right outside of Nashville. And it's heard worldwide, shortwave, Thursday evening, 6 p.m. And then Friday night, it re-airs from WTWW, also out of Nashville, at 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Saturday morning, all Central Time. And there's also a satellite for the Western Hemisphere, where it airs on, I think it's 3 times on Saturday. Then there's the bird over in the East, which covers Europe, North Africa, and the Mideast. And so all of this, plus it airs, streams live, number of places, and all of the archives are on my webpage, going way back to the beginning. And my webpage is jmccsci.com. If you scroll down to the table, you go down a little bit, there's a big table with 3 columns. If you go down in the middle column, all of the information about my radio show is there. Where to listen, the archive link to the archive subpage, and all the different ways to listen, whether you have satellite or X radio or whatever. So and that's has a big audience. I'm also a guest on many shows around the world, basically. And so, unfortunately, I don't have archives of all the radio shows I've done. That would be something. I do have some boxes stored back on the ranch, and of the old interviews, which were real interesting back through the 1990s and the 2000s, etc. And my radio goes way back. I was on the old original Art Bell show. Some people may remember that. Then after George Norrie took over, I've been on there a million times, if at least once. But, and then many talk show hosts all over the place, typically covering a wide variety of topics. But my current baby right now, I would like to say, besides I'm working on many things in the background, but my current baby is this wing generator project, and getting this off and running and get the baby out of the basket, so to speak, here and get it commercialized. This 12-meter model of the wing generator is going to be the first one where people will actually cut the cable to the power company. Bye-bye, no more central power. And that investment will be very minimal. I mean, it's going to be a no-brainer for most people. Like I say, there are places around the globe right now that are waiting in line for these. And literally, they will be cutting the cable to the power company, and no more electric bills forever, and at a very reasonable price. Let me just compare it to solar. I had a friend out in LA region who's up in the hills out of LA, a pretty good size house, 4,000 square foot modern house outside of LA, had an estimate for solar panels to make him completely independent. Just the solar panels were $200,000. That didn't account for the batteries or whatever. With the $30,000 wing generator, I can not only convert his house, but the other 8 houses in his community to be completely independent. So the price scale here is it's so far below what current alternative energy abilities are and capabilities that it's not funny. So this is going to go, this is going to sell, and then people are going to start to buy a second one and start to use electric motor scooters, electric automobiles, and that's when people are going to start raising the eyebrows. And like you said earlier, Brian, I really am glad you threw that comment in, that if you have an electric car, you're burning coal or nuclear to put the electricity into that car, or you're burning gasoline, which is relatively inefficient. You'd be better off just burning the gasoline. And so it's not a green technology unless your source of electricity is truly green.
No, exactly. And the other thing, I mean, I think I'd rather have solar than nuclear. But as you say, it's awfully expensive to replace it with solar because it's not as efficient as your system. But most people don't know is that after 30 years, all these solar panels have to be replaced. Huge recycling. Yes. I don't think they can't be retrofitted or rejuiced. I mean, these things have got to be destroyed and replaced. And that's the energy costs in that are astronomical. And the material costs and whatnot. Your system, I was so impressed when I read about it. I couldn't believe it. This thing is made, you say each one 100 years, minimal maintenance required, minimal energy input required compared to anything else that I've seen.
What Brian, the one thing that most people don't understand, when you see that 3-blade wind generator out there, or you see some solar panels on the house, that's the final product. The environmental damage that went into making one of those blades on a 3-blade wind generator is enormous. They weigh in excess of 60 tons. One of those blades. You're going, wait a minute, that can't even be possible. That's like the weight of 60 automobiles spinning around out there. That's correct. That's what one of those things weighs, just one blade. Now, think of the environmental cost. You're talking about resin. You're talking about building these out of basically fiberglass. The amount of vapor that goes off into the environment. Let's look at the rare earth magnets that go into these, into the wind generators. There's an area in China, and I would like everybody to see this article. I don't have a link right now off the top of my head, but there's a region in China where the area has just been decimated because the rare earth metals don't come out like iron or copper in veins. It's pulverized over a vast area, and so they have to extract the dirt, the soil or the earth, extract this with very serious chemicals, and then the sludge that they remove gets dumped. And it's the same thing. We think of lithium-ion batteries. They're in our telephones. They're in our, every device now has lithium-ion batteries in it. Tremendously polluting process. You have to pump sludge water down into the ground to force out the slurry that you get the lithium out of. It's tremendously polluting. So when you see this green thing out there and people are thinking green, hey, it ain't green. Believe me. The system I have for extracting or for converting the wing system into electricity, for example, uses the same concept as an alternator. There's no magnets in it. The alternator uses coils, and you run a current. You lose a little bit of energy in running it through the coiled copper currents. But the electricity is not generated with magnets. And so it's not quite as efficient, but when you're dealing with a lot more power, so all we're dealing with here is converting the copper power lines that are running all over the country, convert that into windings, and then have the electricity produced locally as a much better option. There's going to be a lot of recycling. In fact, this is embarrassing, but the base of my wing generator is not a single pole. It was never meant to be. It looks like a Ferris wheel because we're building big, big structures and it needs a very solid base. I had to adapt one of my mid-size generators, wing generators, to adapt to the poles that are out there all over the countrysides holding up those 3-blade wing generators so that I can convert a 3-blade wing generator from 1.5 megawatts to 50 megawatts with my system. None of the equipment on that tower is usable. All of that's going to have to be thrown away and basically recycled. But the environmental impact of creating a solar panel, of creating a 3-blade wind generator is enormous. And people never talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's, like I say, as we, stumble along as a species, some things are minimally better, but I think that I really like your this engineering design because it really is giving us so much more bang for a dollar. And I look at the residual costs of cleanup and whatnot. There's nothing. It's not like a nuclear power plant. There's nothing to clean up, and you're just using wind. As you see, you're not robbing the planet of one of its most vital gases, which is oxygen. It's just so clean. It's the cleanest of the clean.
Yeah. We have two major sources of power, sun, the sunlight, and then also wind. If you look at the total energy that falls on the earth every day in sun, it's bigger than the wind energy. However, it's only valuable at high noon where you are. If you look at the energy adaptation curve, or the energy curve on a sunny day, it peaks at noon, high noon, and then by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're off to 80%. By 4 o'clock, you're down to 20%. And so this curve, and then at night, you get zero. So you have all of this installation out there, which is not doing anything about 80% of the time. So solar has a problem. And so what do you have to do? You have to invest then heavily in storage capacity, in batteries. Batteries are tremendously ungreen in terms of the putting batteries on the table, on the market. They're tremendously, they're talking now about hitting the limit of the world lithium supply. They're actually talking about that. Elon Musk has a program to build lithium batteries. It sounds wonderful, but the environmental impact is serious.
I was going to ask you about the Tesla battery. Yeah, what you thought of it. I thought you liked it based upon what I've seen. I thought you thought it was a good concept. I've heard it's completely recyclable. You agree with that? His statements on his site that it's completely recyclable, his battery?
Yeah, if he says that, I mean, Musk is a smart guy. I think I wouldn't say I'm smarter. I think I'm a better engineer and I have better solutions. But I respect a lot of the things he's doing. There's some things I don't respect. For example, his activity with the Google investing in SpaceX and a lot of private behind-the-scene deals with the military in space and privatization, mixing private space ventures with the military. It's a very dangerous precedent. Let me put it that way, but I don't want to talk about that now. But a lot of the things that Musk is doing, the Tesla car is just, phenomenal. But as long as you're running that Tesla automobile with nuclear power and coal, burning at the power plant, it's not a good idea. And also, let's take the guy who is going to put $200,000 solar panels on his house to run his house out by LA. If he bought that Tesla Roadster or sedan, excuse me, he would have to put another $200,000 in solar panels just to operate that car. Okay?
And he's only good for 30 years. Then he's going to have to replace it all. And it costs him more. He's going to have to get rid of it all. So he's going to have to pay the cost of getting rid of it. And then he's going to have to purchase it all. So, I mean, he's looking at on a 100-year plan. You're saying yours is pretty much bulletproof for 100 years. And then what do you have to replace then? The generator in it or something, like the bearings? I mean, minimal cost to fix it.
Let's liken this to a jet aircraft. The only moving part in my wing generator are ball bearings. There are no moving parts. The wings are self-adaptable, so they're very, very resilient in terms of adapting to the conditions. There's really, I mean, if on a jet airplane, take every million miles on a 747, you got to take off the skin. I've seen these. I've been in the hangars with a 747 completely ripped down for a 1,000,000-mile rehab. It's an amazing thing. I suggest everybody do that. But at any rate, those devices are made to go a long time. Now, how can these engines run and run and run and run? The amount of cycles on a jet engine is enormous. You can't even calculate. I mean, it's huge number per flight. Why are they so reliable? Because the only moving part is the ball bearing in there. That's why they're reliable. So that's what my design has, the same situation. And so what are you doing? You're replacing ball bearings. You're replacing aluminum skin. You're replacing metal parts possibly that have a 100-year lifetime. And, so that's, that when I designed this, these are in my functional specification, that it has to last a long time. And if you can get 100 years out of a wing generator, and that's produced the equivalent of a nuclear generator, which is only commissioned for 25 years, maybe 30 max, then you have to decommission it and build another one, and then you have all the fuel sitting around and all the environmental impact of getting that fuel in the first place. In the cost, let's look at the Hoover Dam. Most people are familiar with the big dams, but the Hoover is one of the bigger ones. China has some big ones going in. But look at the amount of cement in the Hoover Dam. Excuse me. It's unbelievable. 2 of my wing generators would replace the 2.2 gigawatts that the Hoover Dam would produce, but without the environmental impact. And right now, the Hoover Dam is not producing any electricity because of the drought out in California. and the wind
Excellent
is blowing
point.
there constantly.
That's becoming a problem everywhere. The wind certainly isn't stopping. No, the winds are always going to blow.
Yeah. I liked, by the way, this. Just saw the recent movie that's very popular right now, the earthquake movie, San Andreas or whatever it's called. The part of it takes place at the Hoover Dam, so I got a kick out of there because I've spent a bit of time at the Hoover Dam, and I think down below they have a dozen big generators that generate the power down there based on the electrical need, etc. But if you look at the facility there and compare it to 2,000-foot wing generators, the cost, I mean, try and build the Hoover Dam today. Let's put it that way. That was built in the 30s with basically slave labor, work camp, government program labor. But try and build that baby today, and then get the cement out there. We're talking serious money to replace the Hoover Dam. But the wing generators, the cost, and I don't have an estimate right now to build one of the big ones, but I do have, you were comparing them to Ferris wheels. The Ferris wheels are getting very big. I think it's the Singapore Flyer. I think is what it's called. is getting up to 600 feet tall. I think that's about how big. The wing generators are bigger, but the engineering is there. And I've discussed this. The companies that I'm dealing with have built like the Houston retractable dome. They build big structures. They know what it takes. They know the engineering. And, these are 1,000-foot towers, very possible. Just to give people a scale of the size of these, if you've ever been to the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, there's two big concrete tower structures near the ends of the bridge. And then you have the parabolic shaped tubes, basically metal tubes that hold up the bridge.
I'm back, folks. Sorry.
Okay. I was talking about the size and scale of the 1,000-foot wing generator.
Oh, okay, great.
Excuse me. And if you go to the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, the towers are 640 feet tall. One of those towers that holds up the Golden Gate Bridge, the top of the tower would be the center post for one of the 1,000-foot wing generators. So go up 500 feet from that. That's the dimensions of one of these wings. And in fact, I was just out there. I went through the wine country and out to San Francisco and did a little visit specifically for touring about the wing project. And if you've ever been at the Golden Gate Bridge, the wind is horrific all the time. The amount of energy you could produce with 2 or 3 of the 1,000-foot wing generators would be enough for the San Francisco and the Bay Area. So, this is the scale we're talking about. So we're talking about a big project, but certainly nothing that's engineeringly, in terms of engineering, certainly nothing difficult. It's well within the means and the cost of and then you compare it to nuclear or coal or whatever, not to mention the environmental costs. It's a no-brainer. So that's what I'm trying to show people. And the biggest problem I have is getting people to understand that alternative energy has been kind of shoved down their throat to be a little kind of Band-Aid. You're always going to hope, and maybe by 2050 or the end of the century, we could convert. Stanford just did a study, said by 2050, we could possibly be close to going green energy. But, that's a long ways away. That gives the energy companies a lot of leeway to keep doing what they're doing. That's all it does. It doesn't solve a problem, and it replaces it with solutions that really aren't solutions. With those so-called solutions, you're never going to replace the central power company. And by the way, it's going to cost the same to operate that central power company as it does today, no matter how much solar you put in. And here's the other problem. The more solar you put in, or wind generation, the more difficult it is for the central power company to control the voltage, and they're going to just call everybody up someday and say, hey, you can't do this anymore. And it's already happening. There are many states that are outlawing or making it so costly to put in solar that it's not worth it. It's economically not feasible.
It's because you said there's too much variation in the voltage so that it's difficult for the transmission system to maintain it?
Yes, and that's why I have a system that will replace the central power company. Let me give you an example. Let's go out to L.A., where, speaking of Elon Musk, he has Solar City out there. They're installing a lot of solar panels around, helping people cut electric costs. But now let's take the reality. You've got maybe 9 nuclear power plants up and down the West Coast, and some coal plants. And okay, it's a hot day. Everybody's got their air conditioning on around LA, and all of a sudden you have maybe, let's say that you really install a big base of solar panels. A third of the houses around the LA area have solar panels. It's raining in the morning. Okay. It's raining until about 11 o'clock. The power company has geared up production of electricity to meet demand. all of a sudden, the clouds go away, the sun comes up, you have quarter or 1/3 of the houses in the LA area start kicking out solar power. It's going to destroy, it's going to back up that power grid into those generators. The voltage is going to peak and it's going to burn out all your appliances, computers, routers, and everything else. And the power companies already know this, so they're already designing this so that they can control and stop the people from using any kind of alternative energy. Unless it replaces the central power company, you don't have a solution. And that power company is going to win in the political arena every time. And that's why I say you have to 100% replace them, because otherwise, here's the question, who controls the voltage? Right now, the central power company controls the voltage within a very few percent. And in my system, I call it distributed energy, where the wing generators that you're replacing these central power plants, you don't care what the voltage is on the grid. It could be relative to our, say, 220 volts, which we use at the house. You have a 220 service coming in your house, and then they break it into two sides of 110. If you control the voltage at your house or at your neighborhood, then the line voltage can be 150 volts, it can be 280 volts. It doesn't matter. You can take the voltage that's there and convert it at the local level, and I've been doing this. I know how it's done. And so you have a much more stable voltage, plus it's hardened against EMPs, because the voltage is controlled and any EMPs are going to be shunted at the local level. The wing towers themselves are immune to EMPs because they're not burning high octane, high heat content fuels. The problem with nuclear, the problem with coal is you've got that generator running, and if you stack more voltage on it, it's going to blow out that generator. It's because it's designed to run at a single voltage. A lot of people don't understand the technical part of this, but that's what it comes down to. And so I keep repeating this. Who controls the voltage? Right now, the central power company does.
Well, you have a decentralized system, right? So each community would have its own source of power with these wing generators. That's the main advantage.
Yeah, and the other thing is people would start to invest into a wing, one of these big generators. And so your energy, you would be part of the ownership of the wing generation.
Yeah, project. I love that. That's the way it should be. Okay, we got another break coming up. We'll pick this up, James. I'm really impressed with this wing generator. Back in a minute, folks. Welcome back to I'm Nature. Your host, Brian Porter, here with our very special guest, James McCanney, brilliant scientist. And I think, folks, he's basically solved the problem of how to create energy on this planet cleanly, abundantly, at a very low cost.
I would have to say he's a rock star. Oh,
rock star all the way, for sure.
That's what I wanted to be when I was a kid. But I chose
what you wanted to be when you were a kid. Well, thank God you didn't go in that direction. We need your genius, James. We need it in the worst way right now. But excuse me, I'm looking at your table of comparison between the 3-blade and the wing systems in your book here, and it just blows me away. I just throw the titles at you. You think you can fill in the blanks?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to installation, how would you compare the 3-blade system to your system, the wing generator?
Well, let's look at it, say, an offshore installation. First of all, you have to underwater build a cement base. Then you have to come out with a crane and go up 300 feet and build all the heavy equipment up on the top. You need an elevator in the tower to go up there for the people to service the equipment, which means they need a helicopter to go out there. With my system, all of the heavy equipment is on the ground. You have basically the first thing you do is you put up the base of the, everybody can imagine a Ferris wheel. From that base, you put in the first wing, and then you rotate it, and you put in the second wing, and you push it, you keep pushing it, and you basically build this from the ground, basically from the ground. All the heavy equipment is on the ground. And so you don't have cranes, you don't have anything like that to build these. You basically build this from the ground up. So the construction is much simpler. The maintenance is much simpler. If you have to replace something, you basically get into the tower that's holding up the structure. All the maintenance is done from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's much easier probably much cheaper to build. What would you say the cost differential would be in terms of power output? Can you give me a number on that? Would it be 10 times cheaper, 50, 100?
Well, let's do per kilowatt hour, which is a measure of energy. Per kilowatt hour, I don't have an estimate. I'd hate to give a number because people might want to quote me on that, but it's extremely inexpensive. Plus, it produces power. You have to remember that the three-blade wind generator primarily does not produce any power. When you look at the overall, annual production, the industry claims 21%. I doubt that very much. I think that's a pie in the sky. I think they fudge the numbers or maybe take a couple of representative towers that happen to be working. I know, for example, I was just out in east of LA, and there was a series of big towers there, and I stopped and I asked the people, I said, do these things ever turn? Because when I was there, none of them were turning. And they said, no, the wind is always too high. They always have them tethered, so they're not turning because they can't operate in the wind and the gusty wind conditions there east of Los Angeles. And so basically, in reality, I don't even know what a comparison would be. But
you
the
also
end result
said
is that they.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. But you also said that they actually have to expend power to get them to start turning in low wind conditions.
There's an electric motor up in the three-blade wind generator. There's an electric motor that gets them started. And a lot of times when you see them spinning, they're not producing energy. They're actually consuming energy to make them spin. And they have to get them going in less than maybe a 7 to 10 mile an hour wind. They will not turn on their own. They're on gimbals. Those big blades are on gimbals that have to turn based on the rotation rate and everything else. Extremely complicated. There's the comparison. There are lists of these things. Let's just take one, for example. The three-blade is not balanced. There's no balancing blade on the opposite side of the blade. And so what happens, say a blade swings up to the top, if it's moving quickly, the blade is actually positioned so the airfoil on the blade is pulling away from the direction of motion. In other words, the force vector from that airfoil is perpendicular to the direction of rotation. So it's about 95% of the force being generated is torquing the middle gimbal that three-blade system is riding on. It's not doing any useful work at all. My system, the wings, like I say, on one of the 1,000-foot wing generators, you have about 1.4 million square feet of wing area. Multiply that times at about 10 pounds per square foot force, plus a 500-foot torque arm. You have tremendous amount of energy being extracted from the wind because you're utilizing the airfoil in the direction of rotation. The comparison, if you put a three-blade wing generator, the largest ones that they can build, because they can't build them any bigger, say about a 2.2 is the big Siemens one now, 2.2 megawatts. The wing generator dwarfs this. I mean, it's just not even a comparison. It's silly. So when you compare them.
So one of your top models, say the 1,000-foot one, do you have any idea what it would cost to make it based upon, it's fairly new. It would probably be expensive to make the first few because it's a new design or whatnot. But what would it cost to make one of the big ones?
I'm estimating around probably $500 million for the first one. And I would say probably after that, you'd be around $100 million per unit on the
Right.
1,000 footers.
And so the 500, I compare the 500 million versus how many of these very inefficient 3-blade systems could you build for $500 million?
Well, you could build quite a few of them. The problem is they don't produce any energy.
That's what I'm waiting. I want to compare how much energy they would put out versus what yours would put out. That's the real testament to how much better your system is.
Right, and here's if you took their maximum output, say at 1.5 megawatts each, and you compared to that to 500, then you're dealing with about 350 of the single, and this is number that's in about average of other types of calculations are done. It would replace probably 350 3-blade wing generators if they were running at full capacity, but they're not. They're running at 20% capacity. So, like I say, in a lot of times they're just sitting there. They're not running at all because they have mechanical problems. They don't go out and repair them, so they're just sitting there idle. So you'd have to make some kind of apples to oranges comparison to get some kind of industry breakdown. But basically, like I say, the 3-blade wind generator is just it's a bad design. It doesn't work. It breaks easily, and they get government subsidies. The only reason they're even in business is because they get government subsidies. I don't. By the way, I do not.
In Ontario, James, in Ontario, they spent $7 billion, and they claim, I think that they're exaggerating, but for $7 billion, they replaced 1% of the power capacity of the province for $7 billion bucks.
Yeah,
I mean that's how inefficient the systems are.
No, that's not the total price tag because every year they get more subsidy money. Let's add in all of the money they get.
Oh yeah. Oh no, they get some pretty sweet deals. People putting on solar in terms of like 10 times what it costs. They get in a rebate what they're actually paying the average consumer. So it's just once these things become more popular, our power bills are going to go through the roof, trying to cover the fact that we're paying 10 times what they're actually it costs now to make the power. So yikes!
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, making the power is a small percentage of operating that power company, and all those other costs are not going to go away until you get rid of the central power company. As more and more people become closer to independent on some kind of alternative energy, that's going to put the burden on those other people down the block. So it's not helping anybody, and they're going to charge you more. You're going to find that if you put solar panels on, they will charge more for your electricity. There'll be hidden fees. There will be other things that they'll put in there to make it really not that attractive.
Yeah, and you're not asking to be subsidized. You want these things are so efficient they can basically run on their own design and their ability to produce power. You're not asking for anyone to subsidize anything.
No. What I'm asking in the crowdfunding, and that's the beauty of crowdfunding, is you're getting away from the old venture capital scenario where they have other axes to grind. The crowdfunding, if you see what's being crowdfunded, it's amazing. None of this stuff would happen in the old investment capital world. And people are producing all kinds of toys, cool things, and useful things. But crowdfunding is the way to go, and it's only going to increase in the future. So it's relatively new to people. So when they go there, a lot of people don't understand what crowdfunding means. That a few dollars from every person adds up. If you have, like I said, 5,000 people with $10, that's what I'm asking for here. Or 500 people with $100. These are not big numbers to get a product out there that is going to basically start really solving some serious problems that we have.
Well, I know some people in the eco-village development areas, and I'm certainly going to let them know about this, because there's one organization called the Global Eco-Village Network, and they've got 10,000 different eco-villages, different size projects connected to their network. So I think this is the kind of thing that they'd be very interested in looking at and hopefully supporting. Because, it sounds to me like you could run a whole village off of the one you're crowdfunding for right now, the 12-meter design.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a, or you might put in 2 or 3 of them, and the whole issue with, and that's what I call replacement energy. The people would have to spec out their needs and then decide, and you always overbuild when you do, in this case, replacement energy. You want to build for the future. You want to have enough power to be comfortable. And then the other thing that people do is they cut back. They cut back on usage. I want to throw in a little economics 101 here, Brian. If you look at the energy we use today to say go to work, and something one of my pet peeves is paying interest. If you look at where people's money goes today, is primarily for very inefficient government programs through taxation, interest on bank loans for your car, for your house, etc., insurance, and energy. Energy is mixed into all of those. If you buy a hot dog at the ball game, it's $3. That hot dog should cost about 12 cents, literally, and with plenty of profit for the farmer. But we're paying energy costs in everything. So if we could reduce these exorbitant costs we're spending for these services, which really are not services, people would understand that they're really working, and that work is not going for their benefit. Then we could start reducing the amount of energy we use. Instead of driving up and down the highway every day to go to the 40-hour-a-week job, people could start living with their families, start communicating, and getting back to social things that we've completely lost in our society. There's benefits here that really are not in the dollar or even ecology market. They're bigger benefits.
Oh, yeah, no, that's why I'm a big fan of the eco-village, because pretty much everything you need is right on site. Your economy, your food, your energy. So it's basically getting back to the way we once lived, which was right off the land. And we can integrate our new technology into this system. We don't have to live in a cave.
Oh, yeah. We're not out there breaking a branch off to plow the ground. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I was on a show just the other day, and I was kind of exasperated because all of our science today, I'm a scientist, engineer, all of our science and engineering is big and government and big corporations, and it's really controlling us. And so, I'm a person who believes that we should have hundreds of thousands of people in outer space. And people go, well, gee, that takes NASA $20 billion a year, and they can't even get one guy up there. Well, that's the point. They don't want you there. And there are people with designs of aircraft and things like that that can go into outer space. It's not that hard a thing to do, but the government wants to prevent that. By the way, at the Paris Air Show, the first commercial electric airplane was just flown at the Paris Air Show this past week. They want to build commercial jet airliners electric, and that's going to happen someday. This is the technology. Electric is taking over and going into suborbital flight with electric engines. Start to reduce the carbon footprint of flight. And this is happening. But it doesn't make any sense if you're burning nuclear and coal to put the electricity into that airplane. If you're converting wind power, now that makes sense. So anyway, this is a whole new concept. And what we have to do here is kind of take people's brains and slam them down on the table and break them open and say everything you've been taught about alternative energy is wrong. There is, and that's why I call it replacement energy. I don't even want to use the same terms because people don't really have this feeling that we can replace that energy, nuclear, coal, and oil. We can. We have the energy source. It's called wind. It blows day and night, the North Pole, the South Pole, and every place in between. You just have to figure out how to tap into it, and that's what I've done.
Well, the only source of energy that I know that's in the same ballpark is deep geothermal power. It's fairly well used in some countries. It cuts their heat bill big time in the wintertime in northern Europe. I think it's another one of those underutilized systems. What do you think of geothermal? Do you know much about it?
Well, yes, absolutely, I do. And what people don't realize with geothermal is people have this idea, like in Iceland or Northern Europe, where they're putting in deep pipe systems. Heat exchangers in moderate climates, anywhere from Ohio south, are very efficient. And you can heat your house in the wintertime with about a third the power as running, like, say, propane, but to run a pump, which just, you put the tubes under your house.
So you think it's a good system? You like geothermal?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're using the ambient heat from the ground, and then you cool your house in the summertime. So yes, thermal is an excellent system. And with the wing system, what are you doing? You're running a pump. You can you can run that directly from a wing system without converting it to electric, because right now they're all using electric pumps. So it would make it very efficient running a heat pump. And for most of the year, except those extreme cold days and extreme hot days, you would be running electric free. You wouldn't even be using electric.
Brian is just trying to connect again. I think he's back.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. Oh, man. This hotel room's driving me nuts. Usually I have a much better connection at home. Sorry, guys. So we're getting near the end of our show here. What did you say something about geothermal power there? I missed?
Yes, I did. You'll have to listen to your archive to hear it. But I praised it. Yes, I know all about geothermal.
And deep
in
Iceland,
geothermal.
Yeah, there's a group. I forget the name of it, but I can get it to you. They're saying there's like hundreds of thousands of times the amount of power that we generate now in the U.S. available through deep geothermal. And but you know, you have to
on a wide scale is it's very expensive. You know, if you compare that to, say, hydro, which is another wonderful source of basically free energy once you get it set up. I mean, look at the Hoover Dam. But there you're talking about infrastructure expense. And deep geothermal is expensive to put in, install, and maintain. The wing system is above ground. It's a lot cheaper. And the production of energy, stored energy, whether it's compressed air, electric, or otherwise, is much cheaper per kilowatt hour. And that's another factor. However, I don't want to step on anybody's toes in geothermal. When you were off air there, I talked about low subsurface geothermal, which is being used widely across the mid-states in the U.S. Very good. I mean, because you're getting basically free heat in the wintertime out of the ground underneath your house. They drill the tubes under your house, just, you know, not very far down. And then you cool your house in the summer, and only on the hottest days in the summer and the coldest days in winter are you actually burning something like natural gas. And I'm a big fan of natural gas. And we can, you know, if we cut way down, we can do this and still use natural gas, still use propane out in those remote areas. My own personal system with a wing generator, I have a propane converted 4,000 watt generator in a battery pack. And if if something goes down, or if I need a few days break, or I got to repair something in the wing generator or something, I just go out and turn on the generator, store up the batteries, and I run on that for a few days.
Yeah. Now, James, these wings, would these wings not be prone to wear out or rip or something like that? What sort of material are you using for the wings?
Well, it depends on the size, and that's why I don't have anything specified in the pictures, because that would confuse people. Depending on the size, some of the larger ones actually use a very heavy sail material. And you can also mix and match it with a very extremely lightweight corrugated polypropylene. basically the same kind of material, very similar to the kind of material you use for roofing. It's transparent, and it's very sturdy. It's corrugated plastic, basically, just like corrugated cardboard made out of plastic. And but that's some of the different varieties of wing material.
Oh, I'm sorry to say, James, but we're getting near the end of our show here. But wow, I mean, I'm so glad you came on and shared with our audience your incredible design. And I really think that this is the best system I've heard of yet, James. So congratulations. I'm wishing all the luck on your crowdfunding proposal, and I'm going to do what I can to make it happen.
Yeah, well, just I hope people go there and throw in a few dollars, and that's going to make it happen. It's already happening, let me tell you that. But a little more help would be a benefit.
Okay, thanks a lot, Angela. And hopefully we'll talk again soon, James. All the best to my listeners. I Am Nature for another week is over. Bye for now. See you next week.
To Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Hi, this is Bo.
And this is Rocco.
And the Bo and Rocco Show is here to offer insight into legal and lawful remedies. Our goal is to remain free and help others remain free in an ever-increasing police-like state. With the help of our guests, we try to answer questions such as what went wrong and what can we do about it.
So tune into Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com Wednesday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to listen to the Bo and Rocco Show.
You don't need to expect us.
We're already here.
Revolution Radio. Every Tuesday evening on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, Studio B.